I'd consider myself a spoken word artist, specifically using those three words, simply because I like to paint pictures with my words. Could also be called a wordsmith, but specifically a spoken word artist because I like to paint a picture, whatever the picture may be. The picture that I like to paint is one that's different. I like to be quite controversial, but also like to be quite realistic. I think that's the bridge that I like to find myself in the middle of. A lot of the time I find a lot of the work that I write is specifically to young people because I want young people to have a different perspective to their reality. It might not be the right one, it might not be the best one for them, but it's a different one. I feel like, life is all about perspective. Everyone has two eyes and everyone sees life differently. In the scenery now, what I see might be different to what you see, but being able to understand and see that difference in perspective is what I find is important. So I write specifically to paint pictures for people. I write specifically to paint pictures for people to have a different perspective of their reality as well. A lot of what I write about as well is specifically to do with the community as well. Everyone lives in a community, everyone has a community to some degree, and everyone has a different view of that community. Everyone has a different view of society. But because of the knowledge that I've got from, studying sociology, because of the knowledge that I've got from studying society, I feel like I'm able to use that perspective and paint that picture for people to see things quite differently from their normal reality anyways. Growing up, a major influence in my life was, I'd say specifically my dad and my sister. My dad was very academically inclined. He focused a lot on making sure we were, in terms of me and my sister were focused on our sciences and our maths. My dad came to this country as a refugee, so he came here running away from the war in Sierra Leone, but in the time that I was alive, from the moment I was born till I was about 10, my dad managed to do his GCSEs, his A-levels, his degree. He got a PhD, and he then went on to actually become a lecturer at a university. So for my dad, academics were definitely a key part of his life. He took a lot of importance in, focusing on the educational part of his life. On the flip side of that, my sister used to love music. So she used to watch a lot of MTV Base, a lot of Channel U. And we used to argue a lot to watch TV, but she'd win as she was my older sister. So I used to spend quite a lot of time, sitting and watching music with her a lot. And I just enjoyed rhythm, music, dance, singing, just anything creative. Secondary school comes, again, very, very focused on the academic side of things for my dad. I enjoyed science, I enjoyed maths, I enjoyed English. I was top set for all three of those subjects. But, going into choosing my GCSEs, I wasn't sure exactly what it is I wanted to do, but I stumbled into doing sociology. And in studying sociology, I came to find that I was able to kind of express my views in society, but I was also able to articulate and understand, the way society was. The two major opposing points were the fundamentalists and the Marxists. And I found myself somewhere in a perfect balance, in a perfect equilibrium between the two of them. The fundamentalists have this idea of, inclusion. They see family, They see a nuclear family as part of, you know, a key part of society. They also see schooling as a key part of society. But the main point of the fundamentalists anyways was a matter of integration. Whereas the Marxists saw a lot of society structures as a system. You know, a major part that Karl Marx used to mention was, you know, the smoke screen that society used to have in terms of crime, in terms of school, in terms of family. Karl Marx's idea was a lot of, you know, the structures in society were shaped for a particular agenda, for a particular outcome. So for me, you know, growing up in a nuclear family, but also growing up in the ends, should I say, or growing up in the blocks, I was able to see, you know, both sides of the argument and understand that. And growing up, being able to articulate that, you know, in sociology, we used to argue a lot. Well, we used to debate a lot. It wasn't particularly arguing. We used to debate quite a lot. But we're also learning how to articulate, you know, the way we felt about particular points. So for me, as a young person growing up in society, actually being able to have a view on society, I was in a position where I was actually able to see the differences, you know, between integration and the differences also between everything else. The police. Yeah, so I was able to, you know, see the differences between the two. You know, at the time, shortly after my GCSEs, I went into work. My dad and my mum split up. So I wasn't having that pocket money from my dad, and my mum wasn't working at the time. So I obviously needed money. And for me, for one reason or another, getting money for me, I chose the legitimate way of getting money. I didn't really see crime as a way of getting money. I didn't really see that as, you know, a way out of whatever it is I was going through. So I started working. My first ever job was as a youth worker and a peer mentor. So I used to spend a lot of time talking to young people about their reality. I used to spend a lot of time speaking to young people about the things that they were going through. And it was very real, it was very raw, it was very open, it was also very honest. And because of my understanding of society and because of my understanding, you know, of the way I grew up, but also my understanding of society, I was in a position where I was able to actually speak to them on a real, raw, true basis. And I found out that, you know, through speaking to them, their perception of society was very different to mine. We grew up in the same community, we came from the same culture, but we had two very different perspectives. So that realness and that rawness in speaking to these young people is definitely what allowed me to kind of understand my perspective in society. And that shaped massively, you know, how I felt about society as well. I used to write a lot, and I felt like I used to kind of document and comment a lot on, you know, what society had to offer us young people and what society had to offer us in our community as well. Because there wasn't many opportunities coming. There wasn't, you know, much to give. There wasn't much to show. There wasn't really much else from that. I'd say I was fortunate enough to go to school outside of my community. Where I went to school was about half an hour on a bus. No, about 45 minutes on a bus away from my house. So I already experienced life outside of my community. But I used to write and document that quite a lot. And I came to realize that, you know, there are ways out of your community. You know, once you can see life outside of, we go up the stairs? Sweet. Once we can see life, you know, from a different perspective in comparison to what we know, especially outside of our community, I felt like it was my position to write and actually communicate that. So I felt like a lot of my audiences were for young people and people of my age and people that were living a reality similar to my own. So I used to write for them. I used to document a lot of my reality. I used to document a lot of their reality. And I came to realize that there's more to life outside of these blocks. There's more to life outside of our reality. There's more to life outside of this box that we put ourselves in. Out of these blocks and the box that we put ourselves in. So a lot of the work I used to do and the work I still do at the moment is to write, to inspire, to motivate, to show life differently for these young people, to show them that there is a different reality, to show them that they don't have to resort to crime, they don't have to resort to the ways of the system that society's put in place for us to, what society's put in place for us to live. We can live a very, very different reality. So a lot of the work I do at the moment, again, is to inspire, to motivate, to show a different life, to show the bigger picture, to create that picture for young people to follow, understand, and see life from a different place, really. Cool. They said, yeah, motivation doesn't last long, but neither does being clean, which is why we recommend bathing daily. That's the same that goes with motivation, you know. It doesn't last long, it is difficult, life is, you know, not perfect for everyone, but you have to motivate yourself on a regular basis. You know, you have to literally fuel your inner self. You know, there needs to be a reason why you wake up in the morning. There needs to be a reason as to why you try to find your purpose. Once you find your purpose, you need to then find your why. You need to find your reason for why you do what you do. That's good. All right, sweet. You know, generally.